Welcome back to Silent Payback story, where silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. Some people don't need revenge. They need patience. They need time. And most importantly, they need silence. In today's story, they thought I was finished. Broken. Forgotten. What they never realized was that silence wasn't my end, it was my preparation. Watch carefully, because the quiet comeback is always the most dangerous. When everything collapsed, they didn't rush to help. They paused. They watched. Some waited for excuses, others waited for entertainment. Failure attracts spectators, not support. I noticed how silence followed me like a shadow, and how quickly people filled that silence with their own assumptions. They decided I was done. Broken. Finished. I didn't argue with their conclusions. Silence made it easier for them to believe the story they wanted to tell. While they spoke freely about my downfall, I withdrew completely. No explanations. No justifications. No emotional reactions. To them, it looked like surrender. To me, it felt like relief. Silence removed pressure. It removed expectations. It removed the need to perform for anyone. In that quiet space, I finally had room to breathe, to think, and to rebuild without distraction. They confused absence with defeat, never realizing that sometimes stepping back is the most strategic move possible. While they focused on the version of me that failed, I focused on the version of myself they would never see coming. Failure stripped everything unnecessary from my life. The noise disappeared. The crowd thinned. And in that silence, clarity emerged. I began to see patterns I had ignored before. Who stayed silent out of discomfort? Who disappeared out of convenience? Who enjoyed watching me fall? Silence became a filter that exposed truth. I didn't confront anyone about it. I didn't demand loyalty or explanations. I simply observed and remembered. While they believed my quietness meant defeat, I was learning lessons that success had hidden from me. Silence forced discipline. It demanded honesty. It removed ego. I stopped chasing approval and started rebuilding skill. Slowly, deliberately, without witnesses. They underestimated how much growth can happen when no one is watching. They assumed silence meant stagnation. In reality, it was transformation. Every quiet day added strength. Every ignored moment sharpened focus. They were busy discussing my past. I was busy preparing my future. The rebuilding phase didn't look impressive from the outside. There were no announcements. No public progress. No visible comeback. Just routine. Consistency. Quiet effort repeated daily. Silence protected this process. It kept doubt away. It kept opinions out. It kept pressure minimal. I rebuilt piece by piece, strengthening foundations instead of chasing quick validation. They never noticed the changes because they weren't dramatic. Progress doesn't always make noise. While they stayed attached to old assumptions, I detached completely from their perception. Silence gave me privacy, and privacy gave me momentum. I didn't need them to believe in me anymore. That was the real shift. The moment validation stopped mattering, progress accelerated. They thought I had disappeared. I had simply gone underground. And underground growth is always the most dangerous kind. Eventually, results began appearing quietly. Not in ways that demanded attention, but in ways that couldn't be ignored. Opportunities aligned. Confidence stabilized. Decisions felt clearer. I didn't return to old spaces. I created new ones. Silence made that possible. When people don't expect anything from you, you are free to redefine yourself. Some started noticing changes they couldn't explain. Their curiosity replaced their mockery. I still didn't speak. Silence allowed outcomes to do the talking. They sensed something had shifted but couldn't trace when or how. That uncertainty unsettled them. Silence had reversed the power dynamic. Where they once judged freely, they now observed cautiously. Where they once laughed, they now questioned. I remained consistent, calm, and unreachable. Silence had turned distance into strength. The realization arrived slowly for them. There was no single moment of shock. Just a gradual awareness that their assumptions had been wrong. They connected outcomes but couldn't identify the process. They remembered how confidently they had dismissed me. How easily they labeled my silence as failure. Silence never corrected them. Time did. Comparison replaced judgment. And comparison hurts more than confrontation ever could. I never needed revenge. Their own realization was enough. Silence had allowed them to underestimate me long enough for the gap between perception and reality to become undeniable. By the time they noticed, the distance was already too wide to close. Some tried to reconnect. Others pretended nothing had happened. A few acted as if they had always believed in me. I treated them all the same, with calm distance. Silence teaches boundaries better than words. I didn't reopen old doors. I didn't revisit old explanations. Growth requires protection, and silence provides it. I had learned that access is earned, not owed. Silence helped me stay focused on progress instead of proving points. I no longer needed acknowledgement. I no longer needed closure. Moving forward had become more important than looking back. The most powerful realization wasn't that I had proven them wrong. It was that their opinion no longer mattered. Silence had changed me internally before anything changed externally. I stopped reacting. I stopped explaining. I stopped caring. That emotional independence was the real comeback. Silence removes emotional hooks. It breaks dependence on validation. It replaces reaction with direction. By the time success became visible, it felt normal to me. That's how you know growth is real, when progress feels natural instead of dramatic. Silence had rebuilt me from the inside out. They thought I was broken because silence looks empty to people who need constant noise. They never understood that silence is where rebuilding begins. Where clarity forms. Where strength returns quietly. Silence forces accountability. It demands patience. It exposes who you are when no one is applauding. I didn't come back louder. I didn't return seeking recognition. I came back stronger, steadier, and untouchable. Silence had removed urgency and replaced it with confidence. I didn't need to announce my comeback. My life had already done that. That's the truth about silent payback. Sometimes revenge isn't destruction, it's evolution. Not confrontation, transformation. Not proving people wrong, outgrowing their relevance. Silence wasn't my weakness. Silence was my recovery, my strategy, and my comeback. They watched the fall and assumed the story had ended. They never stayed quiet long enough to see what was being built underneath. And by the time they noticed, I was already beyond their reach. Silence didn't just bring me back. Silence changed the rules completely.